Something is wrong with the 2026 World Cup before a single ball has been kicked. Not with the teams, not with the stadiums, not with the players. Something deeper. Something that strikes at the very soul of the game billions of people have loved for over a century. FIFA has introduced a new rule, and they are calling it a welfare measure. They are calling it progress. They are calling it necessary. But when you look at what is actually happening on the pitch, when you look at who actually benefits, when you follow the money, and you must always follow the money, the story they are telling does not hold up, not even close. This is not a minor procedural update buried in a technical document. This is a structural change to how football is played, how it is broadcast, and who it is ultimately being played for. The 2026 World Cup will feature mandatory hydration breaks, scheduled stoppages built into matches where play halts and players are permitted to drink water. FIFA says this is about safety. FIFA says this is about protecting athletes competing in extreme conditions. And on the surface, if you do not look too carefully, that sounds reasonable. That sounds responsible. That sounds like an organization putting people before profit. But stay with us, because by the end of this, you will understand exactly why that explanation is not just incomplete, it is a cover story. And once you see what is underneath it, you cannot unsee it. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what we are about to walk through will change the way you watch every match at this World Cup. Here's the central contradiction at the heart of all of this. FIFA has spent years, loudly and publicly, waging a campaign against time wasting in football. They introduced the stoppage time reforms. They pressured referees to add 8, 9, 10 minutes at the end of matches to compensate for every second lost to theatrics, substitutions, and delays. The message was clear. Football's clock belongs to football. Every minute matters. Every second of live action is sacred. That was the promise. That was the principle they built an entire reform movement around. And then, in the same breath, they scheduled mandatory breaks inside matches. Lengthy, pre-planned stoppages that pull players off the ball, disrupt momentum, reset tactical pressure, and halt the most continuous team sport on the planet. Think about that for a moment. Think about that contradiction and sit with it. The organization fighting time wasting built time wasting directly into the rulebook. That is not an oversight. That is not an accident. Contradictions of that scale do not happen by accident. So what is really going on? Let us go deeper. The 2026 World Cup is being hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. 16 venues, 48 nations, over 100 matches. The American television rights alone are worth staggering sums, with Fox Sports holding a deal that places the tournament inside one of the most commercially aggressive broadcasting markets on Earth. American television is built on a fundamentally different model to the football broadcast traditions of Europe and South America. It is built on the commercial break, the scheduled pause, the moment where live action stops and a full-screen advertisement occupies every viewer's attention. That is the architecture of American sports broadcasting. That is how the money flows. And here is where it gets uncomfortable. Footage from matches where hydration breaks have been applied, including trials and tournaments where FIFA tested this system, shows something that cannot be explained away by player welfare concerns alone. Referees delaying the restart of play. Whistles held just a few seconds longer than necessary. Players ready to resume, standing and waiting, while broadcasters on certain networks run complete advertisement packages. The break does not end when the players are ready. The break ends when the commercial ends. Sit with that. That is not a safety measure. A safety measure ends when the safety concern is resolved. What is being described here is a broadcast product, a scheduled window of non-play, synchronized with television advertising that generates revenue for networks and for FIFA through the value those advertising slots carry. And the more you look at it, the clearer the picture becomes. Now, before we go further, if this is the kind of investigative coverage you have been looking for, the kind that does not accept the official explanation at face value and follows the story wherever it leads, then subscribe and hit that notification bell right now. What is coming next is the part they really did not want examined. Let us talk about the climate argument, because FIFA leans on it heavily. The United States in summer is hot. Dallas, Los Angeles, Kansas City, temperatures can be brutal. Players running for 90 minutes in extreme heat face genuine physiological risk. Hydration is not a luxury. It is medically significant. In those conditions, a hydration break is defensible. It may even be genuinely necessary. We are not dismissing that. The welfare argument in isolation, in specific contexts, has real merit. But But FIFA did not apply hydration breaks only to matches played in extreme heat. They did not trigger them based on real-time temperature monitoring or a threshold humidity index. They scheduled them as a structural feature of the tournament. Matches played in the climate-controlled MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, a venue with a partial roof and conditions dramatically cooler than an open Dallas afternoon, will receive the same mandatory breaks. Matches played in the evening, when temperatures have dropped, when the physiological stress on players is minimal, will receive the same mandatory breaks. The rule does not flex with the conditions. It does not respond to the environment. It does not adapt. A genuine welfare measure adapts. A broadcast product does not need to. And the broadcasters themselves are telling us something important through their behavior. Not every network carrying the 2026 World Cup has handled these breaks the same way. Some international broadcasters, particularly those operating outside the American commercial model, have refused to cut away from the pitch during hydration breaks. They stay on the players. They show the coaching staff, the conversations, the tactical adjustments happening in real time. For those networks, the break is dead air, an interruption they work around rather than into. They do not benefit from it. And their reluctance reveals something. If this pause were purely about player safety, every broadcaster would treat it identically. Safety does not have a broadcasting preference, but advertising does. Fox, operating inside a market where the 30-second commercial slot is an art form and a business model, treats these breaks entirely differently. The action stops, and the screen fills with advertisements. Full packages, multiple spots, revenue generated from a captive audience who tuned in to watch football and are now watching a car commercial while a referee stands at the center circle waiting for a signal that is not coming from the pitch. The players are ready. The referee is ready. The world is watching. And the signal to restart comes from a production truck, not from a doctor. This is the transformation that matters. This is the shift that goes beyond one tournament rule. Football, unlike American football, unlike basketball, unlike baseball, was built on continuous time. 90 minutes of unbroken action, give or take. That continuity was not just a technical feature, it was a cultural identity. It is why a child in Lagos and a grandfather in Buenos Aires and a teenager in Jakarta can all feel the same collective tension during a goal-scoring opportunity. Because the clock never stops. Because the flow is never broken. Because the game belongs to the game. What FIFA has done with mandatory hydration breaks is introduce a seam into that fabric, a scheduled interruption that functions not as a response to an emergency, but as a feature of the broadcast. And once that seam is there, once the precedent is established that football can be paused on a schedule for reasons that are negotiated between governing bodies and television networks, the question is not whether it will be expanded. The question is how far. Think about that. Think about what the next version of this looks like in 8 years, in 12 years, as broadcast rights fees continue to climb and the pressure to deliver advertising inventory intensifies. FIFA has already told us what their priorities look like when they think the welfare packaging will hold. The 2026 tournament is not the endpoint. It is the proof of concept. And the fans sitting in those stadiums? They are watching play stop for a reason that has nothing to do with what is happening inside the ground. The crowd in the MetLife Stadium cannot feel the heat that is supposedly driving this necessity. They see players standing around. They see a referee with his hands in his pockets. They do not see a commercial break, because the commercial break is not for them. It never was. This is what football looks like when it is optimized for television revenue rather than the sport itself. It looks almost like football. It has the same players and the same goals and the same ball, but it runs on a different clock. A clock that does not belong to the game. A clock that belongs to the network. FIFA will not say this directly. They will continue to speak about player welfare and evolving conditions and their commitment to safety. Those words will appear in press releases and in pre-tournament briefings and in the prepared statements of their spokespeople, and they are not entirely false, which is precisely what makes them effective. The best misdirections contain truth. They take something real, something defensible, and they stretch it across a purpose it was never designed to cover. The hydration breaks are real. The commercial opportunity they create is also real. The question is, which one came first? The question is, which one would survive if the other disappeared? If tomorrow FIFA announced that all broadcast deals had been renegotiated to remove commercial breaks during stoppages, would the mandatory hydration break policy survive? Would it remain unchanged? Would it still apply in climate-controlled stadiums on cool evenings? something tells you it would not. Football has always had a complicated relationship with money. The sport did not stay amateur forever, and it should not have. Players deserve to be paid. Clubs deserve investment. Tournaments deserve resources. The commercial dimension of football is not inherently corrupt. But there is a difference between money enabling the sport and money reshaping it. There is a difference between a sponsor's logo on a jersey and a sponsor's logo on the game clock. And the mandatory hydration break is closer to the second category than FIFA wants to acknowledge. What you think matters here. Not as a formality, not as a gesture toward engagement, but genuinely. Because the way fans respond to changes like this, the degree to which they accept or challenge the official framing, shapes what FIFA believes it can do next. Apathy is a permission slip. Scrutiny is the only pressure that works. So tell us below, do you believe FIFA's hydration break policy is genuinely about player welfare, or do you see it the same way we do? And if this kind of coverage, honest, detailed, unwilling to accept the surface explanation, is what you want more of, then subscribe, like this video, and stay with us. Because this story is not finished. The 2026 World Cup has not even started, and already the game being played off the pitch may be more consequential than anything that happens on it. Football deserves better than this, and so do you.